Hello, and welcome to episode 20 of Leadership Trail Mix. Can you believe it? I sometimes can't. Today I have a guest, and a very special one. One of those situations where you feel like, is it really happening today? Yes, it is. My guest is Kevin Wilde. He is the author of the book Coachability, the Leadership Superpower, a book that I've referred a few times in prior episodes and where the concept of truth teller comes from. Kevin, what an honor to have you on Leadership Trail Mix today. I would love to start with, how did you come across or come up with the idea of coachability?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I look forward to talking to you and adding value to all your listeners out there on the notion about how do we bring our best to the leadership game. I was a chief learning officer at General Mills. I was working with our top executives, and I was noticing while many of them were doing great and succeeding, we had a few that fell off the career track. And as I was studying what causes derailment, are really smart, hardworking people to get over their heads and something goes wrong. What I found was a lack of coachability.
Mm.
And it started by looking at their last 360 leadership survey of record, where others rated them 30 points lower than our average leaders. And that just led me down the path about what was going on, what happens. Now, as a retired from corporate life, I'm now a fellow at the University of Minnesota in the business school. I teach leadership to graduate courses and research. And I continue to dig in this topic about why do, as we naturally evolve or advance in our careers,
Mhm.
do we lose that learning edge that other people can coach us? And I noticed there was just not much out there on the whole topic of coachability. So what I did find on the flip end was there is some research on the upside if, in fact, as a leader, you keep maintaining or building your coachability.
I love how you articulate the case for coachability. And I think there are some, first of all, the 30 points is just such an impressive number. Every time I hear it, I feel like that's a lot. That's a huge differentiator. So, can you just kind of touch on a few elements or on a few stats of the case for coachability that you present on the book?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it avoids the downside of derailment. Or let's say, we may not be facing derailment, but we're not as good as we could be, or we've got blind spots. I've been noticing lately sometimes it's not a big, you flip the switch and you're not coachable. It just degrades over time. And so you've got to get it back. My research, as well as research from others, found that leaders that were seen as highly coachable had many attributes. One was they were seen as more strategic, they were seen as more influential, they had much higher levels of employee engagement, 2.5 times higher promotability and performance ratings. Particularly interesting was in sales, where one study found that leaders that in sales that were seen as coachable were more likely to hit or exceed their sales quota.
Wow.
I've seen another study, another field in entrepreneurs, believe it or not, Miguel, that angel investors looking at startup entrepreneurs are more likely to invest if they see the entrepreneur as coachable.
Hmm.
So in addition to, you've got a smart idea, there's a gap in the marketplace, you can execute. It's basically saying, hey, if I'm going to give you my money, I also want you to be in a learning mode and take my insights as you continue to grow. And I think that works in general, that the more that we're both authentic and we're, living the values we want, but at the same time open to really understand how we're coming across.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you're connecting being coachable to being open to learning. And I cannot help but make a connection with the idea of growth mindset. So, how do you connect the idea of coachability and growth mindset? And how much do you believe that we are actually teaching our people how to learn? Would that be the first step to become a coachable leader?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's a strong connection there in both in my research and in my own work in the field. What I find is there's 5 attributes of what makes a great coachable leader. And first is the mindset, and that's the growth mindset of value that, as I talk about it in the book, it's you're curious enough to improve. And what I found, I'll give you one interesting piece of research. I want to go back to the 4 other practices I want to offer your listeners that we found highly coachable leaders. But where it started, we had one study, we looked at 200 leaders. We had their coachability as rated by others.
Hmm.
And then we had a personality assessment of their confidence. And what was amazing, so the question was, as confidence goes from low to high, what happens to your coachability? And what we found is it's a curve. So it starts low. And you think about it, low confidence, low coachability. That's, there's no psychological safety. I'm not feeling good. I don't want to take these. So yeah, hard to coach there. On the flip side is way too much confidence. And I think that lack of humility also can get you into trouble. And so the sweet spot's the middle. And I call the middle the learning zone. And so as I was studying leaders at all levels, and many, many differences, what I found was they find ways to practice being in their learning zone. And you're right, it starts with a mindset, as I call it, confidence enough to ask and curious enough to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I think and then what do they do? There's 4 things they do. Number 1, um, they're out there looking for input. They're seeking feedback. They're asking questions, particularly in areas of interest. So that first question I'd ask the audience is, what's your coachable question? If you had to go out today and get something of value to make you better, what would your question be? And so having what I call a pocket questions, you can just pull out and ask, how am I doing? What could be better? One of my favorite ones is a little after action review. I finished a project, I got something done. Hey, before we leave it, what's one thing I did well? I should do again. What's one thing I could do differently next time would be even better? And by the way, warning too, I do that on podcasts. So once we stop recording, I love asking the podcaster, okay, give me some feedback. And so, searching for always, hey, what's one question? I'm confident enough. I want to hear, but I know I want to keep improving. Then the second thing is respond. How well do you show up in the eyes of others when they're giving you coaching, either because you've asked for it or it just shows up? And what I've learned there is you just have to have a trigger phrase that puts you in a listening mode. Mine is, here comes my tip of the day. Oh, here's a tip. And that just makes it neutral. And again, that gives me enough confidence that, okay, it's a tip. It's not a personal threat. It's not something to remind me of what I'm lacking, but it's more of, okay, it's a tip. It's going to help me get better in the best interest. And on the flip side, it's like, yeah, and it's a tip. Why wouldn't you want to hear a tip? So, mindset, I want to get better, seeking ideas, having good questions, responding well, and then taking enough time to think about it. And what I find is when I'm teaching an executive MBA course at Carlson at University of Minnesota, that's their weak spot.
Right?
Our leaders want to get better, willing to ask, willing to listen, but no time to think. I got to rush off to my next thing. And so the next thing I want to offer your listeners is take a little more time to reflect. End of the day, beginning of the day, journal, have a truth teller, have coffee with someone regularly that you can kick ideas around, go for a walk. My favorite is Friday. Friday morning, everyone put a 15-minute appointment on your calendar just with yourself. And it's all about reflection. What's your reflection question? How am I doing well? Did I pick up any tips this week? And then with that reflection, you're deciding, okay, is this something I should act on? Not every bit of feedback or tips are worth acting on. It's worth listening to. It's worth finding. But then deciding the ones you want is the final stage of highly coachable leaders in their learning zone. They learn to follow through. They learn to take action. So that's the model, and hopefully a few ideas along the way.
100%, Kevin. And I think you gave us so many call to actions throughout this conversation, but I would love to hear from you. We always end our episodes with one call to action, something that people can leave this episode and just try with their teams and try with their friends and just be a better human being. What would be the one that you would mention today as the thing people should pursue and start doing to become more coachable?
It would be the very simple, what puts you into your learning zone. And so with yourself and your team, in fact, if you go to my website, thecoachabilityleader.com, you can download the worksheet for free. It says, okay, when I'm in my learning zone, what am I doing? What are others doing? And then how do I engineer a little more of that to my day? So my call to action is to just pause, maybe write down or talk to a friend. Okay, when I'm in my learning zone, when I'm open for feedback and coaching and I'm improving, what's going on? And then how do I intentionally do a little more of that today or tomorrow?
I love that, Kevin. Once again, thank you so much for joining Leadership Trail Mix. I love this conversation. I'm sure a lot of people out there will benefit from it. Appreciate you.
Great conversation. Thank you. Best wishes to all.
That's all for today. As I always say, if you want to share your thoughts about this episode, send me an email, miguel@leadershiptrailmix.com. Thank you for listening. Take care and talk soon.